News, Washington.
Well, let's talk to the London-based US journalist Beth Gardner. Morning to you, Beth. What is the Republican Party getting so wrong?
Well, they've got a lot of problems that they are going to have to take a serious look at, and I think that process has started already, really, since the morning after the election. One of the biggest things that you've been hearing people talk about, including some of the Republican pundits, is the fact that this election has demonstrated that the country is really changing. The demographic makeup of the United States is shifting, and that process is only going to accelerate. The percentage of the electorate this year that was Latino is 10%, which is several points higher than it was 4 years ago. Those voters gave President Obama an almost 45% margin, which is obviously enormous, and it's much larger than the margins that he got in 2008, and it's also quite a bit larger than the margin that President Bush lost Latino voters by. One of the things we've been hearing a lot about is the Republican primary process earlier this year and last year. It seems to have been very, very damaging to the party. It was obviously, as you'll remember, a very, very right-leaning sort of a process. There was very, very heavy pressure on the candidates to push themselves to the right on every issue. But particularly on immigration, we were hearing talk back in January by some of these candidates about electrified fences on the U.S.-Mexican border. And it seems like that really came back to haunt Mitt Romney in November. The party really seems to have alienated Latino voters, and that is going to be a big issue for them going forward.
So I think probably what a lot of us here in the UK struggle to come to terms with, because the system is so different in the States, is the fact that that sort of racial influence, but also religious influence. I mean, we heard one guy in the report there saying, Christians need to get together and get out and vote Republican. Those sort of influences on politics seem so entrenched that it's difficult for the Republican Party to push against it.
Well, and I think part of the reason it's difficult for the party to push against it is that those voters have really been key to some of their last few victories. President Bush relied very, very heavily on the Christian right. They came out for him, the evangelicals, particularly his 2004 victory was really a lot about very, very heavy turnout among those voters. They're still important, and particularly in some of the more conservative states, they have a lot of influence. They had a lot of influence on the primary process, but I think that the party is now starting to feel the repercussions of that, because the conservative positions that they've been pushed into have come back to haunt them. The other voting group that was obviously really important this year was women. President Obama won them by double digits, and a lot of people are at least partly placing the blame for that on some of the very, very conservative positions on social issues that the Republicans have taken. As you say, that is driven a lot by the religious right, particularly abortion. There were some very, unpleasant dust-ups over rape and abortion this year, which really seems to have harmed the party's brand.
It's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, how the Republican Party shifts, or if it shifts ahead of the midterms when they happen. Beth, really good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie's going to be here with the sport for you in just a moment, including England's cricketers making